But... Oh, golly.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars and welcome to another of my misunderstood movie reviews. Today I take a look at the 1999 superhero parody Mystery Men, a film that is directed by Kinka Usher and it stars Ben Stiller, Janine Garofalo, William H. Macy, Hank Azaria, Kel Mitchell, Paul Rubens, Wes Studi, Greg Kinnear, Jeffrey Rush, Lena Olin, Eddie Izzard and Claire Forlani, as well as Tom Waits. What a cast list! Right, what is this film about? Well, it is based on a Dark Horses comic, although only really loosely based on it, is my understanding anyway. I think 3 or 4 of the characters that appeared in the comic actually make an appearance in the film, and a lot of the characters were made up for the film. And it focuses on Champion City, obviously a made-up city, where superheroes are a thing. There is already a champion of the city, Captain Amazing, played by Greg Kinnear. He has no villains left to fight, and his popularity is waning. So he engineers a plot to have Casanova Frankenstein released from prison so that it will give him a new supervillain to fight once again to put him back in the headlines. However, it doesn't go well, and Casanova Frankenstein easily outwits Captain Amazing and captures him. It is then left for the rest of the city's superheroes, such as Mr. Furious, the Bowler, the Shoveler, the Blue Raja, Invisible Boy, Spleen, and Sphinx, to hatch a plot to rescue Captain Amazing. The biggest problem is, however, that none of them really have any powers, so it kind of leads them down a very dangerous path. Right, what are my thoughts on Mystery Men? Well, I do genuinely think this is one of those films that deserved very much to do much better than it did, and it absolutely flopped when it came out. I think it had a budget of around 65, 70 million, something like that, and I think it only made worldwide about 32 million on its release, so it can only be considered a flop. However, it's one of those films that very quickly garnered a cult following. I never saw it at the cinema. I remember at the time when it came out, I didn't fancy it. I'd never heard of it, sort of thing. And you got to remember, at the time in '99, superhero films were nowhere near as popular. We were still in the Batman and Robin era, you know what I mean? So they were just not particularly cool at the time. But I remember getting it on, I don't even know if it was VHS or DVD when it came out, and absolutely fell in love with it pretty much straight away because I got it. It's one of those films that you either get or you don't really. It is, obviously, it's a comedy. It's a parody of like the superhero genre, but it's also well before its time. If this film, I think, had been released in the last 5 years with updated, budgets and visuals and things like that, I think this film would have been an absolute smash hit, because there's so many. I mean, the market is absolutely swamped these days. And when you do get something that comes along that kind of pokes fun at the genre, it sometimes can be a breath of fresh air. At the time when this came out, I just don't think people got it. Critics or audiences, really. But it is genuinely one of those films that has garnered a lot of praise over the years. My understanding is as well, it wasn't an easy film to make. The majority of the cast members were comedians, so apparently there was a lot of egos on set. They're all vying for the best lines, trying to outdo each other in scenes. And the director, Kinka Usher, it was his first feature film. He came from commercials. He'd done a lot of commercials. This was his first feature film, and it was obviously too much for him to handle. And famously as well, he never made another film after this. He just went back to the commercials world. It put him off making films, which is a shame, because you can absolutely see he got some real visual flair and actually quite a lot of talent when you watch this film. And it's kind of been moulded and edited to make a really fantastic film. Apparently there was a lot more footage filmed, but a lot of it just didn't make sense, so they had a lot of trouble editing it down to make it like cohesive. There are a lot of scenes cut out between the love interest between Claire Forlani and Ben Stiller. So when you kind of watch some scenes, it almost feels like the character development, you've missed something. You know what I mean? Because she kind of goes from disliking him quite a lot to kind of being his girlfriend almost. You know what I mean? And it's like, where's that come from? But saying all that, I think the performances here by everybody are outstanding. I mean, Ben Stiller, who was actually at one point going to direct this film, but because of his recent failure directing The Cable Guy, he didn't want to get his hand on a big budget again. He didn't want to do it, but he was convinced to come back on board and play Mr. Furious, and thank goodness he did. In recent times as well, I think he's even been interviewed to say that he would be interested in doing a sequel, which would be really cool. Janine, I always pronounce her name wrong, and I hope I don't. Garofalo, who plays the bowler, is excellent. She's got some great scenes with the cast, especially Ben Stiller. They're always bickering with each other, and she has these weird conversations with her dad's skull. It's in a bowling ball. Very good. She's very good. William H. Macy, who was like the straight guy in the film, is really, really good. I mean, everybody's good, but I think the standout performer here is Hank Azaria as the Blue Raja, who's constantly having to explain his name and his costume to everybody. He's very funny, and his gift really is he chucks cutlery, like forks at people. And then you got Wes Studi playing the Sphinx, who kind of becomes their leader and teaches them to work as a team and all this kind of stuff and discover their powers. And then you've got Jeffrey Rush stealing every scene that he's in, playing Casanova Frankenstein. Completely over-the-top pantomime performance, but it's perfect for the film. I think the film has got some really great visuals in keeping with a kind of a real gothic style, almost Tim Burton-like. And there were rumours at one point that Tim Burton actually directed this film, but that's nonsense. He didn't direct this film. He was actually, at the time this was being made, directing Sleepy Hollow, so he couldn't have directed this film, but it does have a very Tim Burton look. And I do think the visuals are impressive in this film. I think the film overall is impressive. If you've never seen Mystery Men, honestly, it's a film you really can't afford to miss. It's got a fantastic cast. It's got a fun idea, a fun story. Doesn't all work. It is a little bit messy here and there, but it is, I think, a really, really good superhero parody. It's genuinely funny at times. It's got a fun conclusion to the film, and to say that there's all these characters that the film's got to facilitate and all these actors with these parts, everybody gets their time to shine in the film. And it is a really, really fun time if you've never seen Mystery Men. So I do recommend it very, very highly if you've never checked it out. And let me know in the comments if you have seen the film, what you think of it. And if you haven't seen the film, if you plan on checking it out. And I will, of course, be back with loads more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.